The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Wednesday, the 21st of January, 2026. We have a special show for you today. In a second, we're going to bring on Dr. Christina Parks, and we're going to talk about Barbie, normalizing autism, because so many of you have contacted us about how upsetting you're finding this. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Then we are going to go to Patty. Patty's an educator, and she's seeing the rise in autism. So we're going to hear from her. And then we're going to hear from New Zealand. COVID shot injuries in New Zealand, doing a fantastic job over in New Zealand. So you're going to hear from Gaylene and Lynda after that. So let's start with, is Barbie normalizing autism? Let's bring on Dr. Christina Parks. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. It's my honor.
So this is the problem that people have, Dr. Parks. They're contacting us, and because they know about my son Billy, who's not like that Barbie doll, even if it was a male version of the doll at all. You know, most of the people in our movement have very, very severe vaccine injury, which is what it is what I'm going to call it. And this is they find this an insult. I also do as well. But talk to us through, because maybe it's just because we don't understand the higher functioning. I mean, I think this should be an Asperger's doll, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but I think it goes beyond that. So, I mean, it could be an Asperger dog, but it goes to, they're saying it's autism Barbie. They're conflating a medical condition with an identity. You are not whatever medical condition you have. And that is what we are finding with our autistic children, is that there's somebody inside that has been unable to get out. And that's why Spellers is such a big thing, because who you are on the inside isn't always reflected on the outside. And that can be something that feels painful and disconnecting to parents, that like, yeah, you know, some people with disabilities that are on the spectrum, on the outside, they can manifest a much truer vision of themselves. But in the end, this is really about whether we're conflating a medical condition with an identity. And so what Barbie and these dolls are supposed to show is something that people can get inspired by, that can look up to. I want to see whether, you know, it's an autistic person or not, someone who's an author, and maybe have an accessory that's a spelling board, right? That you can have your spelling board and your stack of books. Or you can be an engineer with whatever paraphernalia or whatever in the background that might indicate that, with your fidget spinner, right? Because there's some of us, I'm highly kinesthetic. I could use a fidget spinner, right? So these are tools to address a medical condition, whether it's a wheelchair or, you know, some sort of pump for an insulin pump for diabetes. And so we don't need diabetic Barbie. We need, you know, what you want to become. What is your dream? Whether it's rock climbing Barbie that has an insulin pump, or whether it's author Barbie that has a spelling board, right? All of these, you know, what is the vision that you're moving toward? And so I don't want my child ever to feel like their medical condition is their identity. And that feels very limiting.
Actually,
we want them to be able to dream.
This is such an important thing that you're saying, because I'm just visualizing now how that would work for the adults that we look after. We've got one adult that just is very severely injured, and what other people say he plays with trash, but he doesn't. He's actually recycling. So recycling Barbie would be great. And my son doesn't play. He looks after chickens. A chicken farmer Barbie. Yes, you've got it, right. Dr. Parks. That's exactly what we need.
What is the vision? And then also give them the tools. Like, I don't follow Barbie. I mean, it's like, I don't have the time for that. But the point is to be able to, and that's what we did as children. Like, you could get camper Barbie and dream house Barbie, and those were all very materialistic. But the point is that let me have the accessories to build who I am and my dream, right? So they gave Barbie these, you know, she can bend now at the elbows. Well, why is that just for autistic Barbie? Why don't we have that for, you know, pottery Barbie who needs to bend at the elbows, right? So give us the tools to build our dream and then incorporate the tools, whether those are things like a wheelchair, so that we feel represented. We don't want to just feel represented. We want to feel represented and be able to dream, right? And we don't want to be represented in a way that comes off as being limited. We are at a point in this movement where we are just really seeing the potential of all these people that we have not been able to open up. We have not been able to open it up so they can dream. And at this point where they are able to dream, many of our children, like we're seeing their dreams, whether it's recycling trash or whether it's writing a book or whether it's forming a forum for non-speakers. We want to give them the tools to make those dreams visible. And that might take some thought, but we don't want just representation. We want to see where our future is going.
And also there is a danger that it's normalizing the conditions of our children. I mean, many of our children have been injured by vaccines. I mean, it's just the way it is. We trust the parents, we trust what they say. And by this doll coming out, it's like, oh, it's perfectly normal. Here's your doll, play with your fidget spinner, flap your arms, whatever it is. That is a bit dangerous, in my opinion.
It can be. I mean, and so I think that there is a balance. I mean, I think that it also does open it up to conversations about what these different things represent. So if you have a communication board or even a spelling board, we need to maybe have these discussions on what apraxia is and what it looks like. So I don't see it, to me, if it's just an accessory, then it's, something that you can incorporate. Like, I mean, I think having an accessory is a wheelchair. Well, there are people who, are in wheelchairs, but to come out with it as its own standalone, again, it puts us in a category, and you're saying it's normalizing, but to me, it doesn't normalize them as functioning members of society. It normalizes them as kind of aberrant members of society. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they're not, they're not as a doctor or a lawyer, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Dr. Parks, the rate of autism is astronomically growing. I don't think you even know the true rate of how many people are injured. Let's put it that way. And this, again, going back to this normalizing thing, which concerns me greatly. My first question to you is, what is going to happen to all of these adults that are now adults when we, the parents, are no longer around? Do you have any idea if there's anything in place for this? Because parents are extremely concerned. Psych wards are being built all over the country. And what are they built for? We don't know. Mental health issues. But the concern is, where are our children going to go when we're not around?
Yes, I have a special needs daughter. She's not autistic, but it is extremely concerning to me. And my brother had Down syndrome. So this is something that is very near and dear to my heart. And that's why I formed the website that I did, Vita, and to try to increase the quality of life, increase recovery. And this is to your point about normalizing autism. When we have thrown all of these things into this big vat and called it autism. Let's deal with the motor apraxia. Let's deal with the sensory things. Let's deal with the gut. And so that's what my website does, is it really, the free pages are all about vaccines, so you can get that information. But but for members, we have a ton of health recovery information, everything from mold exposures, pandas, subclinical viral infection. I'm doing a lecture on that coming up. We're going to learn about scalar energy, how to protect your family from Wi-Fi, because a study just came out showing neurodevelopmental delays the more Wi-Fi. And so instead of calling everything autism or calling it this, let's define these specific categories and reduce exposures, bring on healing modalities, heal the gut, get these people the highest quality of life and the highest functioning they can. And of course, we all know about ending the exposures, whether it's glyphosate or vaccination or Wi-Fi or whatever it is. So all of that's on board. To your question of, still there's going to be many injured people that need care. That's the next step. And I think we hold space, and this is where, when we all get together, we start talking about, what does that look like? Hold space for the answer to that question. Communities, and I think you have explored that possibility, where one person solely isn't trying to care for someone. But I also think as we open it up and understand more about things like motor apraxia, and open our children up so they can be better advocates for themselves and tell us what they need, then that is the step forward that they need to have more fulfilled lives. And I think that opens it up for them to be better regulated, right? What does neuroregulation look like? How can we support that?
Dr. Parks, is really interesting. Lou, if we can just go back to Dr. Parks's website again, you just mentioned mold. And this is not something I know that I prepared you for, but I have so many people talking to me about they think they have mold. They think this mold is making their injured child worse. And so while I've got you, and while the fact that you mentioned mold is, what can you tell us about how can someone find out if they have mold? And if they have mold, what are the symptoms of mold? And how can they get rid of it?
So in general, mold just kind of tanks your immune system. And as your immune system tanks anything else you have going on, maybe you get sick all of the time, or if you have a subclinical viral infection, it comes out. So the immune system just sort of spirals. And I had, I think, Teresa Haller come on and speak about mold. And so she helps identify. And so that's where you can go between this. And you kind of have to use a little bit of your intuition and talk about what are the symptoms of mold. So we do go into that in one of the lectures that is for our members once you join. And in their spotlighting, we have a wonderful library of researchers, which I see the CHD page is right on there. But I think we talk more about what that looks like. But here's the thing, what I'm finding is just like almost everybody is saying, I'm really sensitive to mold. Now, one of the things that the spike protein did from the COVID virus or from the vaccine is it sensitized our immune systems to mold. I do believe that. So we're seeing many people, because they're more sensitive to mold, reacting to mold in their environment. So if you have mold in your environment, until you reduce or alleviate that mold exposure, you're going to continue to tank your immune system. And then everything is going to have a negative impact on you, and you're going to be tired and, exhausted. But there are things, and I think herbs are one of the best things. And we talk about some herbs and things like that for mold, because remember, these plants have to grow outside in moldy environments, and they naturally have compounds in them that are anti-mold. And so that can be very protective and help to clear your body of mold. But if you have a mold exposure in your environment, then that's a problem. So we do, again, have a webinar. We also have one on yeast. Of course, mold and yeast are kind of the same family. And there's one specifically in identifying whether your children have symptoms of yeast overgrowth in the body, because that's huge too.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about this. I'm so glad that we found your website, because I hear a lot from unvaccinated, I call them unvaccinated families who have not given birth at home, and there's issues still going on. So it's not just the vaccines. We know that for sure. And you talk about the EMR situation as well. People have crazy amounts of EMR in their house. Can you talk about some of the other things that are a danger to our children, whether they're injured or not?
Well, I think we know that the gut, and I think that this is actually the threshold. Our microbiome, and this is the work, of course, of Dr. Sabine Hazen, who has basically said that our microbiome collectively has been destroyed. And I think that this is the root cause where our children's guts do not have a resilient microbiome. And that is lowering their threshold to mold exposure, because it's the bacteria that make different signaling molecules and that tell your body even what nutrients to absorb, and that make anti-inflammatory signaling molecules like butyrate. And so when the gut microbiome is off, then you are way more sensitive to mold exposures, to AMF exposures, to food exposures. And so I think that the glyphosate, the non-organic foods, are contributing to that, but so is the spike protein. So I'm seeing a rash of children who were born around COVID, who I think were hyperinflammatory and had a destroyed gut microbiome. And these aren't people who were vaccinated. Some are nonverbal and, unvaccinated. So I think that this core issue, that's one of the things that the spike protein does is, one, your gut can make it. Children can have a subclinical gut infection. And so I do have a spike detox, and I have some recommendations for children on there. And that has to be safe, right? It has to be safe for our children to bind that spike protein and get any kind of virus that's still a subclinical gut infection with our children, to clear that. And nobody's talking about that. Our children's guts, their systems are hyperinflammatory, and they may still have a chronic infection with COVID. And because it keeps circulating every year, it goes around. People have mild symptoms, but they tell me after every COVID exposure, even if it was just like a mild cold, their health spirals. And it's because that spike protein is so toxic.
Yeah, and we've got measles and whooping cough going on. We're hearing from the unvaccinated families again in that, and they just can't shake it. They don't know. It's not, Dr. Parks, it is not like it was in my day. I know I'm old and stuff, but in my day we had measles. We were off school. I remember being off school for 10 days or something, and I was fine. It was annoying that I couldn't go back. But now we're not able to shift these coughs, these colds, these illnesses, these rashes. Is it because of the environment in our house? What is it that's...
No. I believe it's the spike protein. I believe it's COVID. It has dysregulated, and I have a specific one for members called chronic immune activation. Our immune systems have been chronically activated by the spike protein. And then if you add something like a mold exposure or a chronic virus like Epstein-Barr or something like that, it is our immune system is when it's chronically activated by something, it stands down. It actually stops. It's like because if it continues on, it will actually cause autoimmune issues. And we're seeing autoimmune issues. So this is an issue of chronic immune activation. And of course, I do have one for members on chronic immune activation and how that can lead to basically what you're seeing. People just can't shake things, but it can also lead to cancer. It can also lead to autoimmune issues. And so I walk you through that and all the causes, which I believe that the cause that kind of has spiraled everybody is COVID and the spike protein. But, leaky gut factors in, chronic immune activation, aluminum, glyphosate, all of it factors in. But once you can kind of reduce some of your exposures, maybe you can't do all of them, you can take it one at a time. And I believe that the gut, again, is central because I believe that people have a subclinical COVID infection. And one of the things, and there's contamination in the vaccine that is a spreadable infectious agent that codes for the spike protein that's making our gut make it. So that's something I can come on again and talk about how the Pfizer COVID, the contamination of the Pfizer vaccine may be causing some of what people are seeing.
Even if they didn't take the COVID shot, because it sheds, right?
Absolutely, yes, because it sheds, because it gets into our bacteria and we all share bacteria. So it's absolutely for everyone, and anyone can have a subclinical COVID infection in their gut. You don't have to take the vaccine. I work mostly with people that didn't take the vaccine that are still struggling with their health. It's global. It's a global issue.
It is a global issue. And so Dr. Parks, once again, tell everybody how they can follow you on all your social media or websites.
So the best place probably to follow me is on Instagram. It's at Epigenetic Healing, I'm also on Telegram as Dr. Christina Parks. I'm on Facebook as Christina Parks. And I'm also on X as, I think it's Dr. C Parks 1 or something like that. So I'm pretty much on most of the social media platforms.
And people can sign up to be a member as well.
Right, that's what I recommend. For Vita, if you want all of the, and you're not going to be able to search for Vita because why pay for a search thing when it's not going to come up? So you want to go to it. But I have links on all my social media platforms to my website, and it's $13 a month to become a member of Vita and have access to all of the different webinars. And we do live webinars where you can ask questions twice a month. So.
Okay, and there are some questions coming in, but we'll save that for when we next get you on because we definitely want you back on. Dr. Parks, thank you for all the work you're doing for educating us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, now we are going to go to Patty McCarty. Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well.
Tell everyone who you are.
Well, I live now in the vicinity of Portland, Oregon, and I've been teaching a long time. And I started in Georgia. I had my training in Kentucky, and then I've moved to 3 cities in Oregon, taught in homeschooling and private schooling and in public schooling. And I feel like I have a picture that not everybody has.
So tell us about it. Tell us about what you saw then and what you've seen since.
Okay, when I was in college, I went to Western Kentucky University, and I chose the college because they did this cool thing where as sophomores, if you were interested in special education, this is 1976, So 50 years ago, they didn't believe that incoming students would necessarily know what you were signing up for if you're going into special ed. So they put us in classrooms all over about a 200-mile radius between Louisville, Kentucky, and Nashville, Tennessee, and the school districts in between, trying to find students with different kinds of special needs. So like kids with developmental disabilities, kids with spina bifida, cerebral palsy, hydrocephaly was common at the time. And they were looking for someone with autism. And the way autism was defined at the time was it was a kind of schizophrenia. They finally found me one student to work with who had autism. He really had schizophrenia. It was not even close to what we call autism now. But they worked hard to find me somebody, and they found me one student.
How long ago was that? How long ago was that?
1976, so we're talking 50 years ago. And I want to say it was the early 90s that somebody sent me to a training because autism had been redefined. And after that training, I began to see kids, not commonly, but here and there, who would have what we now call autism. And it's like it's been completely redefined. And what we're looking at and we're calling autism, I wouldn't call it a form of mental illness. I would call it, I don't know. It looks like a brain injury, and it's just very different. But interestingly, as I have taught, I'm now in the metro, and so I've been working in what we call East County schools. There's several districts over here that I've taught, and I'm just retired recently, and so now I'm substitute teaching in East County schools, and so it's 4 school districts. And the numbers go up every year. And like last year, I was in an elementary classroom where it was self-contained, 9 students that were significantly impacted by autism spectrum disorders. And we had 3 staff as well as the teacher, and 9 primarily nonverbal kids. And they told me at the end of the day that they were about to double the size of the classroom because there were already 3 classes like that in that school district that were roughly 9 to 10 kids, elementary age, that couldn't be full-time in the gen ed setting. And they were going to double the size because they had so many incoming students. And so that says to me, this is unprecedented, because when I started teaching, they just weren't here. And we had this big change in the 90s where they were here, but they were rare. And now they're everywhere. And I just think, I have told several people this, and they said, no, that's your imagination. I'm thinking, if you had been here this whole 50 years, you would know it is not my imagination. This is real.
No, it's not your imagination, Patty. And I want to just tell you, so my son is 30 now, and I took him out of mainstream school when he was around 9 or 10. And it was because they couldn't cope with the amount of autism that was in the classroom then. And somebody had said that my son had been dragged by his hair to the principal's office. I mean, it makes me feel sick to even think about it now, because he was having some kind of meltdown. So if they couldn't cope with it then, 20 years ago, how are they coping with it now? And also, what does that mean for the child that hasn't got autism and wants to learn? Because I can say it because I'm a mum, my son couldn't even sit down on a chair, so that must have been extremely disruptive for everybody else. So what kind of a state is the classroom looking like now?
It's hard. It's really hard. And I read somewhere about 2 years before I retired that teachers in my age bracket were retiring in droves. And part of it's burnout, people who are just tired. But I think at this point, a lot of general ed teachers are expected to take students like your son into their classroom and just have him be incorporated into the group. And they're supposed to make sure he gets exactly what he needs in his very specially designed instruction educational experience as well as everyone else in that room. And that's not really very easy to be done, if it's possible at all. And if there would be a one-on-one assistant with him, then he could come and go. If he's having dysregulation, he could leave the room, be regulated in another environment, and come back, right? But often we can't find people who want to do the assistant job. And so, like in the program I taught where I was placed last, I was there 4 years, we really had a hard time hiring assistants because some of our students would act out, some of them might actually hit you. And, you know, who wants to be paid not very well to go to work and risk being injured? It's hard to staff it, and it's exhausting for everybody there. And you're right. The other children, I've heard from parents that the typically developing children that are in the classrooms where these kids have been mainstreamed come home fearful. And so, you know, anxiety's on the rise. I wonder why. If you're not sure that the child in the back of the room isn't going to pick up his desk and throw it at your head, can you relax and learn?
No. I also believe, from my son's point of view, that, you know, I didn't really realize how medically ill he was when he was in school. And we all know that when you've even got a migraine or you're sick, no one can work. So how can you expect someone who is non-verbal, unable to express the way they are? They've been put on a school bus, they've been put into a school with people they don't know, and God knows what. I mean, let's be honest, you're a great teacher and you're a great person, but there are people that don't have our children's best interests at heart.
Right.
And so for me, I feel like I wish I'd never sent my son to a public school ever. It was one of my biggest regrets, and the abuse that he suffered. He can now, to some extent, tell me about it. But it's I don't know what to say, Patty. It breaks my heart. All those children and adults now in institutions that are being abused.
Unfortunately, and it's happening both ways. Children are abusing adults,
Right.
and adults are abusing children. I have not seen many adults actually break and abuse children, but I know that we get to breaking points, and you would see teachers after the children left being like, "Ah," right? Because students sometimes are pushing you to the breaking point. And it's really difficult to maintain your professional demeanor. It just is difficult. And honestly, teachers are human. What are you going to do? And not every teacher is as passionate. I mean, I have a strong preference for students that we would call on the spectrum. So I enjoy their company. And so typically I'm pretty safe because I make them feel safe and accepted, but not everybody is. Can I also say, I'm working now with homeschoolers more than I'm working in public school. And homeschooling is a wonderful option for kids that are with any kind of learning difference, because mom and dad actually care. All of them do, right? Mm-hmm. And mom and dad are going to give them the best of the educational opportunity. So I'm coaching moms and dads so they can do that. Anyway.
Patty, that's great. And here's the thing that I was talking to with Dr. Parks earlier. You know, no one will love our children like we do because of their extreme issues that come with it. And they're our children. So, of course, you know, we'll do whatever it takes to make them better. But it's I can't imagine someone else having to deal with Billy's meltdown or whatever it is. So, again, what is the solution education-wise? You've just talked about homeschooling, but in the classroom, the ones that are being sent into school, the teachers that can't cope, understandably, the children that don't have special needs or issues and want to learn and can't because, you know, they're afraid of the person sitting next to them. I mean, that's the way it is. And I can say it, people, because I have my son, so it's true, it's a fact. What's the solution, Patty?
Oh, I wish I had one. I feel like one of the reasons I started looking at you guys is you have pointed people toward research that would help us reduce the number of students in the pool, especially of the low end, low functioning autistic. And, you know, I'm hoping that we're going to stop doing whatever it is we're doing that is driving autism to get more and more common all the time. But it doesn't, I don't know. I don't have and I don't see an educational solution really, because I really do think students that are not talking do better in a self-contained class. Or actually during the shutdown, I taught some kids online, and the wonderful benefit of that is that mom and dad were able to take them to their own bathroom when they needed to go to the bathroom. Whereas in my classroom setting, we're taking them to the bathroom on a schedule. They had to go when I had staff to get them there. And so kids wound up being much more independent, being taught in the home setting. And then I was doing the draw out the language part of the education. And I was doing that over the internet during the shutdown. So I guess I really do feel like if a student is not yet talking when they enter school, it would be better if somebody would help mom and dad teach them in a home setting than to put them in the classroom. It's not really good for them. It's not really good for the other kids.
Completely agree. Patty, what do you think is the reason? What do you think the reason is for the rise in autism?
I really do think it has to do with vaccine injury. And I think, I guess I've seen that so often and had parents tell me it was right after that shot that this happened. And I'm walking through this with a really dear friend right now who's got a 3-year-old who went from bright and ahead of the developmental curve to he stopped talking, he stopped interacting. And now they've got a doctor treating him for vaccine injury, and he's beginning to develop. Yay. But anyway.
3-year-old, as a 3-year-old.
He's a 3-year-old now, yes.
Okay, well, so this goes on. I mean, so what is the solution we talked about? Well, the solution to those new parents is don't vaccinate. And this is a mother to a mother. I've seen it.
I would like to say that, yes.
There's other issues, as we talked about with Dr. Parks, that can also injure your child, because at the end of the day, the kind of autism my son has is injury, vaccine injury. He was not born with it, and he would not have it if I hadn't have vaccinated him. So, and going forward, I think what we're saying is, look, if you're child, I get that you parents need a break. I've been there. I understand it. School sounds great just to give you a break. But honestly, I think it's one of the most dangerous places that you can send your child if your child is living with gut issues, flashing his head, has violent outbursts like my Billy did. It's not good for him, and it's not good for the school or anything. Nothing good is going to come of that. And I think that's what Patty's trying to warn us. And Patty, I just want to say thank you for all the work you've done, all the love you've given to our children over the years, and for being brave and coming on here and talking about it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your hearing me. Really appreciate what you all do.
Well, we appreciate you, Patty, and thank you so much for being on. Do come on at any time with anything else that you have to say. Thank you for being on this morning.
Thank you very much.
And so to our viewers, this is why it's so important. If you are someone with experience like Patty, if you're seeing things in your area, contact us at chd.tv, because we want to hear from you. You are the citizens reporters. You are the ones that are going to tell us the truth of what is going on around America, or indeed around the world. So we want to hear from you. We don't want to hear from a journalist. We don't want to hear from the BBC or any of that kind of stuff. We want to hear from you. And that's what CHD TV is about. I also want to tell you about our X channel. We have a new X channel, CHD Live. I think it is. Lou, what is it? Oh, it's CHD TV Live. Yeah, it's brand new. We need you to get over there and follow us. We're going to be putting all of our clips on there. We have to be doing that at the moment on that social media. That's X at CHD TV Live. So please tell everybody that we're over there with our clips. There's some great clips that you will not see on the main channel. So please do join us over there. Right, now we're going to go to an interview that I had to do last night because it's New Zealand and they're fast asleep right now. So we did a quick interview. And I want you to hear about the wonderful work that they're doing in New Zealand. We're all brothers and sisters standing together. So enjoy this and support them if you can. And I'll be back with Financial Rebellion with you all tomorrow.
My heart just started to go boom, 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 like so fast. So you're probably just having a bit of a panic attack.
It felt like a cramp in your foot when you're swimming. When you swim too long, you're like, and it's agony. But I remembered it felt just like the pericarditis I'd suffered 10 years earlier.
I feel like I died when I got that vaccine. That's how it feels. I was working in a rest home And we didn't get a choice. It was like immediate. I started to get stabbing pain on the left side of my chest. My daughter rushed me to the emergency department, and the doctor there said to me that I was the 4th person in that day. And that's when I was like, but I thought that this was all safe and effective.
And you could draw a line straight down the middle of my body, and this whole side was just tingly and weak. I thought, wow, am I having a stroke? And that afternoon, everything just became heavy. It's like life become overcast.
He had the Pfizer vaccine, and then he was thundering down the road in a 56-tonne truck, double trailer.
And it started getting really aggressive. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat and out my chest.
And they took him to Ashburton Hospital.
This is when things started getting interesting. At this point, I could barely talk because the pain was that much. And one of the first things that happened when I got to ED was one of the doctors leant over me and said, "Don't let this put you off your second vaccine."
But the worst part is the gaslighting, is people being ignored, laughed at by doctors shutting doors on them, doctors ushering them out, just totally disregarding what they have to say. To be honest, it's become like a belief system.
Here is a resource to actually explain to you that why what you're doing is wrong. And here's 10 points of why it's wrong.
So after this second stroke, I went and saw my doctor, and he said, "Come see me in a week." And he had a wad of paper that he had printed off from the British Medical Journal. He said, "I had no idea this was going on." But he said, "Everything you've been telling me is carbon copy of tens of thousands of cases that have been happening in the UK." And now he's lost his job.
So they do all their tests, and anyway, they finally said, "Oh yeah, okay, so it possibly is the vaccine, you've got pericarditis." Monitored me for about 24 hours, and then said, "Oh, you can just go home now, but make sure you get your second shot."
And the sad part was the waiting room was full of young people. Like, that's not what a cardiologist's waiting room should look like, ever. And that's when I was like, all right, there's going to be a loss out here.
So I got my COVID vaccination, and it would have been within probably about 48 hours where I noticed my hands were shaking a lot. So I was holding my books, listening in class. I felt like I was going to rip the page out of my book, basically, because my left hand, I couldn't hold it still. I was 17 at the time.
They know there are many of us out here that are really suffering. They know they're culpable for that. But not one of them is prepared to stand up and say, "We did this, we're really sorry."
They know exactly what they're doing when they look at you and they say, "Hey, I know that you're going through all this, but let me play devil's advocate." 2 words that I've come to hate.
Just terrified to go to sleep every day. Just worried, am I going to wake up?
I think the words I choose to use have to be good, because they might be the last words that I say to people who I love.
I'm really proud of myself for saying what I've said today, because the reality is my body's fucked. And I'm in so much pain and discomfort most of the time. It's really hard for me to think positively. So this is the way forward. So trying to reframe things as my spiritual journey and to speak that is a really powerful thing. Thank you.
Wow, very powerful footage coming from New Zealand. We all thought we've heard from America, we've heard from the UK, we've heard from Australia, Canada, but we haven't heard from New Zealand. So let's bring on our guests now. Good morning, Lynda Wharton. Good morning, Gaylene Barnes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Polly. It's a real honour to be here. Thank you.
That was so powerful. So, and you know, a lot of people in 2026 are saying, "Oh, I'm so sick of listening about COVID. We have to keep going." What they did was barbaric. is the only word that I can come up with. But let's start with you, Lynda. Tell us about who you are, first of all, and then we'll go to Gaylene, but who you are, and tell us about New Zealand.
Thanks, Polly. Well, who I am, I'm now, as of the last 5 years, I'm known for something completely different to the previous 35 years of my life, when I was known in New Zealand as one of the forefront holistic health practitioners in this country. I have operated a very, very busy holistic women's health practice here in Auckland for 35 years. I am now retired, but for the duration of that time, I was a registered traditional Chinese acupuncturist and a naturopath, specializing in holistic women's health. But I think I was perhaps more known than the average holistic health practitioner because I had a parallel career as a freelance health journalist, columnist, and book author. And so I wrote on all aspects of holistic health, but primarily focused on women's health for magazines and newspapers in New Zealand and Australia. And I wrote 3 holistic women's health books several years ago. They're all out of print now. So that was my background. That was who I was leading up to the world flipping upside down in December 2019, when this new SARS-CoV-2 virus was announced. And because of that background, I watched the development of the COVID vaccines with a combination of great interest and growing alarm, because as a health journalist, I had already researched and written about several different traditional mainstream vaccines, and I had some idea of what is involved in developing a safe and effective vaccine. And I knew that it wasn't a one-year timeline, from inception of the concept to arms. So I started watching. I was very concerned. In early 2021, when the Pfizer was rolled out in New Zealand, I just very spontaneously decided to start a Facebook page where I would write about my concerns. And this grew into a group of 58,000 predominantly New Zealanders who were either injured by the product, lost a loved one, or tens of thousands joined us when they were adversely impacted by COVID vaccine employment mandates. So in a nutshell, I started a voluntary organisation called the Health Forum NZ. We still exist to this day, advocating for, informing and supporting New Zealand's predominantly Pfizer COVID injection harmed.
Wow, and the footage that we've just seen, Gaylene, I understand you're behind that. Tell everyone who you are, please.
So I'm a filmmaker, and I've been making documentaries for 20 or 30 years. During the mandates in New Zealand, which were outrageous and completely immoral, nearly, most people were kicked out of their jobs, and even me as a contractor, really struggled to find work. So I made a film called River of Freedom, which was about this, the protest against the mandates. We travelled on a convoy like the Canadians, and I think there was some convoys in the US as well, up to Parliament, and we occupied Parliament for 23 days protesting against the vaccination work mandates, which most people felt were a complete breach of our very flimsy Bill of Rights, where we're entitled to not take medical treatment if we don't want to. So there was very legitimate concerns that we had, and I filmed that. My job as a filmmaker, a storyteller, and so we made this film. It actually became number 3 New Zealand film that year. It's on the top 100 in Box Mojo. And it was actually achieved number 1. We put it into the cinema. So after the success of that, Lynda contacted me and wanted me to do a documentary about the vaccine injured, and I was absolutely thrilled to help her and to help the vaccine injured to tell their story, because they had been so cancelled. So beyond being coerced into a vaccine, then injured, and then refused treatment at hospitals often, or denied that they had a vaccine injury, they were then not silenced. And the media in New Zealand also still to this day really refuse to talk about them. Even some alternative media channels in New Zealand still refuse to platform the vaccine injured. So it's absolutely crucial that we get these stories out. I tried to make a documentary like River of Freedom, but it's very expensive, and it requires a lot more story and movement and journey. Do you know what I mean? But we had these great interviews, and we just needed to get them out. So I decided to make a web series, an episodic web series, and you've seen this trailer, which has got several of the people in there, and we've released a story already on Ange, and Ange was actually born in the US, and she's now living here, so she was our first episode. And then tomorrow we're going to release an episode on a jeweler in Auckland called Brent.
So, but one of the interesting things about watching that was, again, we heard it so many times. We travelled on the bus around America, listening to the COVID stories and the hospital protocol killings. Let's not forget that as well. But one of the interesting things is that you'll get injured, and you brought it up twice in this thing, and they say, I'm so sorry you got injured. Don't forget to get your second one. I mean, the mentality of the medics, I mean, they must know that that is not the best. I don't understand what went through their minds. Do you think they honestly believed it when they said it? What do you think, Lynda?
Complex picture, which I understand a lot more in retrospect than I did at the time, at the time of the rollout in 2021. The psychological operations, the behavioural psychology that was rolled out in New Zealand on a scale never before witnessed was immense. We had every single media platform, written, television, radio, literally 24 hours a day for the duration of their screening hours, rolling out government-sponsored marketing for COVID injections, always with the three-word tagline of safe and effective. The brainwashing was relentless. Secondly, there was no room anywhere for any alternative voices, for questions, for a genuine, data-driven, science-based discourse or debate. That was left to a health journalist such as myself to start that process, with the attendant, abuse and ad hominem attack that came my way as a result of being the person to put my hand up to start that process, expecting that the immunologists, the virologists, the cardiologists would step in behind, and we'd have a genuine, legitimate debate about whether this really was safe and effective. That never happened. I was a sole voice to begin with. Then, thankfully, I was followed by New Zealand Doctors Speaking Out with Science, which is a collective of New Zealand doctors and specialists who I call them the honest doctors, the ones that will talk about this issue, and they're treating many of our injured here in New Zealand as well. The other thing was that the government, then under Jacinda Ardern, the Labour government, started a public journalism fund that was intended to supposedly support media in New Zealand through the implosion of the COVID years. What it actually did was it bought the media. The media was paid by the Labour government to toe the line. So the media was completely closed to sharing the truth of mRNA injury. It is still completely closed, which is why I reached out to Gaylene, and we've started this series, The Tribute. And then, of course, we had the Medical Council of New Zealand sending a silencing letter to every registered doctor, saying that they were only permitted to speak in positive terms about the product, and they were only allowed to discuss any aspects of the COVID injections that were sanctioned by public New Zealand Ministry of Health policy. Only the official line.
It's absolutely criminal. Now, why, Gaylene, do you feel it's so important that people do not forget the COVID era? Because most people really do think, I just want to put it behind me, it was so awful. But there are people suffering. There's so much death, number one, but there's people suffering beyond belief from those injuries now.
So it's really important that these stories are told, and personal testimony is so powerful. So, and as accountability it might not happen now, but we know that accountability, there is going to come a time down the track when justice will be served. And it is really important for us to gather these stories now, to keep the pressure on, to make sure that we're hearing and putting these voices on record, which is why I was really keen to get the film and cinema, to get this tribute series, online in as many places as possible. It's just so that we, it's just to ensure this story is not wiped clean from the pages of history, because I've seen this happen. Wikipedia is wiping us clean, everything was cancelled off Facebook. So, and all the sort of the historians or often refer to news, and as we know, the mainstream media was avoiding this issue, was not talking about it, was not holding the government to account like they're supposed to. So there's a real dearth of the real people's voices. So that's just my role, is to bring these stories out, to make sure they're there, so that when the time comes for accountability, there's historical record.
Quite right too. And Lynda, are people still taking the COVID shot in New Zealand?
Yes, sadly they are. We have a population of just over 5 million in New Zealand, 5.1, 5.2 million. And we have administered more than 14 million Pfizer mRNA injections in New Zealand. A very small number of Novavax, about 10,000, and the same of AstraZeneca. So almost exclusively Pfizer. And yes, we're still dispensing anywhere between 3,500 to 5,500 new doses every week, predominantly elderly. And now if our elderly have taken all of the COVID shots that have been recommended to them, we're up to dose 11 now.
This is shocking. AstraZeneca, interesting, that's been taken off the market in the UK, but it's still going over there in New Zealand.
No, it's also off the market. The 10,000 were in the early days when AstraZeneca first hit the market. Yeah.
Yeah, and something needs to be done about that. So how deep are you going to go into this documentary? What are you going to be talking about? Just the injuries? Are you going to be talking about the lead up, the history to it, how it should never happen again?
Would you like to speak to that, Gaylene?
The web series is absolutely personal testimony, and I mean, we have some little cards that talk about why they did it, or why some different science things, but it's just going to be very small and short, and we just need to keep it very simple, that and just hold that space for that person to tell their story. So each episode is one person, and it's 20 minutes.
You know what you need? You know what you need, don't you, Gaylene? You need a Vax bus.
Oh, do we ever? We fantasize about this.
Yes, Lynda.
We fantasize about that.
Thank you. Yeah, like we've got a great cameraman, we've got me, and we can so travel the country, because a lot of, it's in the little regions and things, it's very difficult to travel there, and we could take even a camper van and with a white screen.
Maybe not so big, having been to New Zealand, maybe not so big as the big 42-foot, but you definitely need something to get out there, and because it's education. Every time someone tells their story, it educates someone else. So how do we get to know about what you're doing? Where do we go? Lynda. Gaylene.
Oh, Gaylene.
Well, we have a website, thetribute.nz. And we have a Buy Me a Coffee page, because obviously we're independent and we're crowdfunded. Thank you, our public in New Zealand that have supported us. And that's Buy Me a Coffee. And if you just search The Tribute, you'll find that. We're on YouTube with our little hashtag TheTributeNZ. We're on Facebook, we're on X and Instagram. Yeah, we're really going all over. And, it's really interesting that we're not being thrown off yet. So, I mean, like Lynda, we've all had experience of it. I think they've woken up, they've changed. And I have to say that's really because Americans stood up, didn't they, to tyranny and to censorship. And that has actually influenced the rest of the world a lot. So I think Facebook and YouTube are not so censorial anymore. And of course, in New Zealand, we voted out our tyrannical mandate mania government.
And Lynda, how can people follow you? Because you do so much good work. I've heard it from such high places that you do, that you are really the one. So thank you for all you do. How can people follow you?
Thank you, Polly. Well, I would say that watching the tribute documentary, we've deliberately kept it raw and totally devoted to the voice of the individual who has suffered. But those people who wish to look at a much more in-depth, data and science-driven approach to questions around safety and efficacy, they can follow the Health Forum NZ. So our first group of 58,000, we were taken down at the height of the COVID madness in New Zealand for speaking truth about injury, COVID vaccine injury. So now you can follow us on Facebook at True Stories from the Health Forum NZ. And on X, we have a platform called NZ and the mRNA. So those are now our two social media platforms, and our website, thehealthforumnz.co.nz.
So the message to the people out there, if you can help fund this ongoing stories, just like you did for the Vax Bus, you did for America, and we did England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, we did Canada. So if you can help these people, because these stories are so important, if we all put all these stories from around the world, we're all saying the same thing. It's maybe different language, as in a different accent, and that's about it. Everybody had the same reactions, same amount of death, same amount. So this is why it's so important that we, the people, stand together. And you know what I think? I don't know what you think about this, Lynda and Gaylene, but I think the true science is the people. We are the first-hand experience of whether we took the shot or did not take the shot. And so we're the true vax-unvax study in this.
We genuinely are. And in the early days, I had very lengthy conversations in person and email conversations with one of the leading journalists in New Zealand at our biggest newspaper. And he actually used the term, I was trying to persuade him to write about these stories. And he used the term that they were just the unfortunate collateral damage. So that was the NZ Herald, with one of their leading journalists in 2021, and so we don't share that belief that these are real live human beings who have been terrible victims. Many of them are chronically unwell. Many of them have died, and for every seriously injured person, you have ripple effects that go out to affect an unknown number of others, their carers, their children, their parents, their close friends. So this becomes a population-wide problem, not just, the injured individual.
And what's your message, both of you, to those listening, no matter where they are in the world, that are suffering chronic pain and their lives have been ruined from doing what they thought was right and taking the shot for community immunity or whatever that means? But they did, in their mind, the right thing. But what is your message to them? Because there's so much pain out there. So, Lynda, Gaylene, I don't know.
My message is we love you and we really care about you, and not just us. There are millions of awake people in the world now who feel profound compassion and care for you and your suffering. And there are also millions of us who refuse to be silenced. We will continue advocating for you. We will continue telling your stories. We will continue with political process, royal commissions of inquiry, and one day there will be justice for you.
That's lovely. Gaylene?
I think a lot of people that we talk to speak on this subject, and it has been really important for them to find closure and to find a way to come to terms with their decision that they took, and they have really owned that. And I would say, half of the people have really come through the other side, and if not their body has been healed, their spirit has been healed, and speaking that out, and even just that journey with us to tell the story is a healing thing too. So if you can find someone to talk to about it, who's not going to judge you, who's not going to offer you advice, but just listen. And, that's what we do, Polly, and that's why it's been so powerful, just that journey of just listening and sharing. And it is a healing thing. So it's to find closure and to come to an acceptance with your decision.
Well, Gaylene and Lynda, I want to just say that you both are welcome back on CHD TV at any time. Please keep us updated on how it's going. Lynda, we hope to hear from you on all kinds of aspects of New Zealand, actually.
Thank you, Polly. That's so exciting. Thank
But
you.
we're all brothers and sisters at the end of the day, and we've got to be the journalists, we've got to be the media, because we can't trust the media in New Zealand or anywhere else. And so we're so grateful for you for what you're doing. And like I say, please do come back to us, keep us updated. We do pray that you get money sent to you to keep going on this most important endeavour.
Thank you, Polly. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thank you, Gaylene, for your heart to do this work with. I just would like to add that the entire first series of our first 12 episodes, Gaylene and our amazing cinematographer, Mark Blackwood, have done all of this work with no funding, no compensation, no pay. And they're professional story makers. So while they're working on this project, they're not being paid on other work. So I'm so deeply grateful that you had the heart to do this, Gaylene and Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to Gaylene and Mark. Thank you so much. And I'm sure there will be people that will come forward and fund this, as I say, most important work. Well, thank you both for being on this morning. We hope to see you both again soon.
Thanks Polly.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, we are live. Tell us your name, please.
My name's Debbie Neese.
And this is a story about your son.
Yes, Braden Bohannon.
Take us back and tell us what happened.
So on May 14th, 2021, we went into the doctor for a football physical, and I picked him up from school around 2:30. We went home for a little bit, went to his football physical at 3:30. We went in, he did a urine test. They did everything. They passed him for a football physical. And right before I left, I said, hey, before I don't want to have to come back, can we please give him that 7th grade required shot, which was Tdap? And they said yes. And I said, does he need to take anything else while we're here so I don't have to drive back? And they recommended Menectra, which I didn't know what it was at the time.
What is it?
It is for meningitis, but it has 4 serogroups in it, everything but B actually. Serogroup, I can't remember them all, A, C, Y, but so they gave him 2 shots. And then we left. That night he had a stomach ache. That weekend he kept asking us what a heart attack felt like. Mom, can you feel my chest? Put your hand on my chest. And I told him he was going through puberty. I thought, oh, you're just, anxious. So then 14 days later, we went to Disneyland, and I noticed he was getting tired. And one morning we woke up and he's throwing up. And I'm like, gosh, maybe we wore masks all day. Maybe he's tired. And then got home a couple weeks later. We were going camping, and he kept making smoothies. And I said, Braden, let's test your blood. You're so thirsty. And we tested it, and it said high on the glucose monitor. So we immediately went down to the emergency room, and he was 614 blood sugar, and he was a 12.4 A1C. We went in, he was in diabetic ketoacidosis, he was in tachycardia, and this is 43 days later after he got the 2 vaccines. And then we went to Sacramento. We were in the hospital for 3 days. I went back to my primary to get an endocrinologist referral. And when we looked at the chart, I said, this is crazy. We were just here about a month ago, and he was fine. And the nurse said to me, you're right, Debbie, and look at his urine test. He was 100% negative for glucose, ketones, everything, 10 things on that urine test. So it's impossible, because they told me at the hospital he was 614 blood sugar, and he had an average 3-month back to all the way to March. He had to have 309. And I said, that's not right. He was 100% negative. He would have tested +3 on the urine test. So then I started diving into vaccine injury. I didn't even know such a thing existed. And I started I immediately got his titers ran for both vaccines. I got his COVID antibodies ran, heavy metals test ran, ANA, everything, DNA. I did it all because I knew I was going to file a case. And so I did. I filed it. I'm in the middle of it. Actually, it was as we speak. So my case is with the National Vaccine Injury. So we are we've got our reports, so we're filing. Yeah, we have our thing. But it also promoted me to look into vaccine safety. I thought, wait a second. Well, if this could help Braden, because the number one question people ask me, why'd you do a urine test before vaccines? And I said, we were in there for a football physical. It was, what are the odds, right? So then I looked up on the CDC site and everything, what kind of vaccine safety do we have? And all I saw was VIS forms, which we know some read it, but I didn't even read it. And then a doctor-patient discussion, which is just talking. So talking, reading, and the VSafe app, which is after. And I thought, well, that's not enough. So if I can help people before I wrote this bill that would require doctors to offer urine test or blood work prior, and that's what I've been promoting.
So tell us about it.
So it's a bill, I called it Braden's bill, and it will require doctors to offer it as an added vaccine safety measure. Because I was in California at the time, and I saw all these vaccine requirements. We're going to add this, we're going to add that, this is another requirement. But I did not see one vaccine safety bill. And I tried to look back and think, why are there not vaccine safety bills? And why haven't they started promoting those? We need a baseline. We need testing done prior so doctors and parents can go back and refer to it, and in case of an adverse reaction. And in this case, Braden was 100% negative for glucose, ketones, white bloods, everything was perfect. They cleared him for football. I have the slip. And then all of a sudden, 43 days later, because they give the vaccines at the end of the appointment. And I know I'm not alone. I started posting about type 1 diabetes after vaccines, and it is amazing how many people have had the same reaction with type 1. And then I started looking at type 1, and then it's just skyrocketing. And I thought, and they're predicting more. So why don't we offer urine tests? So I've spoken in a couple events, and I have parents ask me, what was it that you said that we need to do prior to vaccines? And they would go and get the urine test, and then the doctor would say, wow, I've never heard of that before. And I said, just do it. You'll need it in your baseline testing in case there's an adverse reaction. It's never going to hurt.
With all this work that you've done studying vaccinations, is there anything that would make you give your child or you a vaccination again?
No.
Any of them?
No. I won't give him any more vaccines after nope.
And what's his life like today? What does having type 1 diabetes mean?
Well, he's he'll be on insulin for the rest of his life, and I know. So he is in the honeymoon stage, but we monitor his A1C. A honeymoon stage is, it's slowly, the pancreas is slowly dying, if I have this right, and then eventually it won't be able to make any insulin at all. That's when he'll be dependent on all those shots, at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But right now we're just monitoring his A1C and his blood sugar every day. So, and it was, last month it was high again, but it's just getting a little bit higher. So sometimes the honeymoon stage lasts a month or two. That's what I've heard and what I've researched for years. It could be up to years, so.
And how's it affected his sport and everything else? How's it affected him?
Well, it was hard too because of the lockdowns, and then as soon as 2021, he went right into 7th grade. And I remember dropping him off, and instead of going to see his group of friends, he had to go straight to check his blood. Before lunch, he would go in and check his blood because he wasn't on a glucose monitor yet. So I just feel like he lost, he was already behind because of the lockdowns. And then getting into 7th grade, it's just hard. And then, during football season, we monitor a lot, make sure, because it's hot and he's down there on the field. And some of the days it was like 110, making sure he has his monitors his blood and everything.
How old is he now?
He's 15.
And is that him there?
Yep, that's
Can we
Brady.
show the people?
Yep. That's last year's photo, and
So they kind of destroyed his life.
Oh, he has. It's like I said, he'll be on insulin for the rest of his life. And if I always encourage people too, if I ever hear of a new type 1 diabetic, I always tell them, go back and look at your vaccine records. Go back and just see if there's a correlation. Anyway, Braden was 43 days from that. And he, like I said, maybe some people are 60 or a little bit longer. So, but I did also, when I ran his titers and I ran the COVID antibodies, because that was the time when people were saying that COVID might have caused it. And I said, well, he tested negative for COVID throughout that whole time period that he had to get back into school. And so his antibodies were negative. His tetanus titer was 3.92, and you only need 0.10. He probably has enough tetanus in his body for the rest of his life. I didn't even know what a titer was, and I did it for Menectra too. I was like, I want to see all the titers.
How did he get through the whole COVID era with the pressure to get the COVID shots and stuff like that? How did you all cope?
Oh, I just said, no way, I'm still dealing with, I just said, I'm not, what I've researched, what I've learned, to see him go down like that in 43 days, his whole body changed and his whole, he was real lethargic, throwing up. It's just awful. So I was like, well, how can I help? because it's too late for Braden, right? Because we have to deal with that. But I mean, at least it could help somebody else.
Well, you're doing amazing work with this bill and everything. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry that this happened to him. It's awful. Is there anything else you want to add to the story?
Nope. I just encourage parents to, if for type 1 diabetes, to look back and think to look back at the vaccines to see if it was given and then all of a sudden now they're a type 1, because the incidence of type 1s now are just crazy. It's not 1 in something anymore. It's like 1 in, so, and even predictions in 2030, they're predicted to be 1 in, I can't remember all the odds or statistics, but.
Were you shocked when you look back at the vaccine schedule and really dived into the vaccines, what's in them and stuff? I mean, it's shocking for us all.
Shocking.
That we put that in our children.
I had no idea. I didn't even know how to say the word endocrinologist, diabetic ketoacidosis. I didn't know what tachycardia was. I didn't know what type 1 diabetes was, and I had no idea what were in vaccines until I didn't even know I was supposed to get a VIS form. Then I read up on the history about how they were long, and then they condensed them to front and back pages. And I didn't know there was a vaccine program. So I did Google, what do you do when your child's vaccine injured? And then that's when my whole journey really began. Like, oh, there is a program for this. Oh, I'm not the only one. I looked up VAERS reports of type 1 diabetes dating back to the late 80s, early 90s. So I think it's something to be looked at, highly looked at.
Never take another shot again.
No. I saw that, and then reading other stories and meeting other families. I have a friend who believes the same thing. He has 2, and I notice it's mostly in males. I have a friend whose 2 boys are both type 1 after the Tdap, the vaccines. And we met on like a forum.
It's interesting you say that. So he had 2 shots that day, but yet you think it was the Tdap rather than the other one.
Now we're unsure. It could have been the combination of the 2, or it could have been the Tdap, but it was immediately that night, stomach ache. And I'll never forget, he asked me and I put my hand on his chest, and that's when he said, what's a heart attack feel like? And I was like, oh, you're just going through puberty. But then he was in tachycardia 43 days later in the emergency room. So yes, so I hope thank you.
Thank you for warning the people.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.